You know how I found this thread, chat room? There was a link in, I think it was Our Fighters, and it was like, this is what people who don't play fighting games think about fighting games. I always love reading these. Oftentimes, when you look through the lens of fighting games, you look through them from the experience of fighting game players, as you guys, chat room pretend to be, and as I am. It's always interesting to me when you get to see the thoughts and experiences of fighting game, balance and changes from people who don't play fighting games or who are not really that interested in fighting games in general, right? The top thesis of this thread, the title is, those who don't play fighting games, would you play them if they were slower? Fighting games seem really fun. The moves, combos, and strategies all seem like a blast. But when I've tried to play these games, the speed was just too much for me. Even after playing for over 10 hours, it's still too fast for me to have fun with the combat systems. Many of the attacks happen in a fraction of a second. In shooters like CSGO or Rainbow Six Siege, the reaction times are also fractions of a second during shootouts. But so much of the gameplay in shooters is much slower, focused on maneuvering through the level or cat and mouse chases between players. These moments of sub-second reaction times are just that, moments, making up a small portion of your entire game time. Interesting, I have a lot to say there. Fast-paced fighting games are not bad, tons of people love them, and developers should continue to create games for that market. But I personally would love a fighting game with attacks that simply ran at half the speed of Mortal Kombat, Tekken, For Honor. Also, I wonder how many other gamers who don't play fighting games would also enjoy this. This is really interesting to me because super slow fighting games do exist. If he wants to talk about like CSGO being like 90% you walking around slowly, 10% action or gunplay or something, then you could probably compare that to something like Samcho. And a lot of people who play fighting games think Mortal Kombat is slow. And I also saw people say they think Tekken is slower compared to other games, or For Honor is. I only played that game forever ago, but yeah, also slow. Generally, the thing is about this that I think is interesting is the perception here that everything that you have that gets thrown at you in fighting games, you have to defend within a fraction of a second. This is just a misconception. Most things in fighting games that you have to defend against are not fractions of a second in the sense that you're trying to react to a jab and block it on reaction. Most of the time, what you're reacting to in a fighting game is you block, you just default to a block, and then once you've blocked an attack, you think to yourself, what did I just block? What am I supposed to do about it? You're not reacting to a 3-frame jab and blocking that on reaction or whatever, right? You're not reacting to a 10-frame jab and blocking that on reaction or whatever it is. You are, moving yourself around, positioning yourself on the screen, kind of similar to what he talks about in CSGO here. And once you do have to defend, or once you are attacking, you're making decisions, but these decisions aren't rooted in some 0.00001 reaction time or something like that. You're just like, I block something. Do I stay blocking? Do I try to wiggle? Do I mash a button? You have lots of time to think about that generally, right? This is somebody who self-admittedly is like, hey, these fighting games, I don't really play them. They're too fast and stuff. But it's important to understand that, again, there's a misconception that fighting games are all about reactions. It's not like every time you block an attack in a fighting game, you're like Neo, blocking all of the agent's moves and parrying them. You just block, and you're like, well, I'm blocking. Whatever he does, I'm holding down back. I've already committed to it. And even in fighting games, when you're walking across the screen and blocking projectiles, you don't react perfectly and block the fireball like the frame it happens. You just walk forward, block, walk forward, block, walk forward, block. Why? Because you can't see the frames of the fireball perfectly to block an attack when you're walking in. It's the same kind of idea. Well, if I walk this far and then I block again, I'll probably block whatever he does. In the same way in CSGO, when you're peeking around a corner or something, you're not like instantly analyze the entire screen and you see all this stuff and then just start taking people out like you've got the Red Dead Redemption, Deadeye or whatever. You're just like creeping around a corner, right? You're peeking around a corner. And if for some reason something is happening, then you try to shoot them. And in fighting games, for some reason, if they did jump at you or they did something fast, right, that requires a reaction, you try to deal with it. Same kind of idea. And some people bring up that in fighting games, there are things in fighting games that are based around reaction. That is true. Most of them are built within a specific window. They're not 3 frames or 5 frames or 7 frames. They balance around a reaction window for most of their mix-ups. The things you have to deal with and the things you actually have to react with are within a certain reaction window. And even in this reaction window, people are wrong all the time, first of all. And second of all, they're only looking for a few specific things. overhead or low, right? You're not looking for overhead, low, this thing, that, it's usually a small decision you're making there. And if you're in a position where you have to guess between 5 different things or something like that, you're probably dead anyway. I wonder what the average comparison of like reacting to snapping to someone's head in CS is versus like a mix up in a fighting game. I feel like it's probably a faster snap reaction in CS than what most fighting games are, to be honest. Then there's the top comment on this thread, which I also thought was interesting. There are 2 things that stop me from enjoying fighting games: button combos and juggling. Button combos I hate because I want to forget the controller exists. Memorizing the strings of buttons and their effects feels like homework. Plus, I hate when I follow the instructions and nothing happens and I don't know why. I wish more games would copy Smash or Soul Calibur, where each move was a direction plus 1 or 2 buttons. Fighting games are still like this. I mean, if you think about Street Fighter, what are jumping attacks, standing attacks, and crouching attacks? They are down plus an attack, nothing plus an attack, up plus an attack. It is very rare that this is not how you attack people. Perhaps this is a comment about special moves. And even then, those kinds of games exist, right? Grand Blue, Power Rangers, right? That's something that's there. But the other thing is, I want to forget that the controller exists. When you're experienced with fighting games, chat room, do you think about the controller a lot? Obviously, the answer is no. But it's like that when you think about when you're experienced with any kind of game, right? That's how it works. Once you know how to play, you don't have to look down and think about your controller. I think this is somebody who just maybe got overwhelmed by the amount of stuff in a fighting game that they felt like they had to learn, instead of realizing like, oh, you can just learn 2 or 3 things and then just go do whatever, right? The second is that I hate games where combos go on for so long that it feels like the player getting juggled may as well put the controller down and watch unless the other player drops the combo. If a player is dead within 2 combo chains, they may as well just give each player 2 hits and drop the filler. The thing is, the idea of why not just make it so that when you get hit, you can only get hit twice and then you die. These combos require some dexterity to do, right? They require, knowledge of the situation. They require knowledge of your resources. They require some kind of execution, right? They require decision making. There's a lot of things that go on, and these combos are droppable. People will make mistake and people will drop them, regardless of whether the game is high execution or low execution a lot of times. And if you do want to play games where you have interactions during combos, like it's mentioned in here, there are games with bursts available. There are games like Killer Instinct with combo breakers. There are games like Mortal Kombat with breakaway. There's Smash, which you can DI. There's plenty of, in Soul Calibur, you can hold a direction in the air and make yourself go somewhere, right? Also, yeah, the die in 2 combo chains is like, what happens then when someone gets hit by a raw projectile on neutral and then an air to air? Well, you're just dead. That was 2 hit points. Oh, you're going to die in 2 combo chains anyway. We'll just give you 2 hit points. And the games where a character generally tends to die in 2 hits from jabs, from lights or something, you have like 3 characters. So you have plenty of decision making in between all 3 characters dying. Imagine if in Street Fighter, you fought Sagat and 2 Tiger Shots killed you. Anyway, this is just a really interesting thing to read. I think that there are fighting games that tailor to this kind of idea, right? I think Fantasy Strike is something that is similar to this, in the sense that if you don't like long combos, you want your health to just be 1 hit, it's there, right? If you want games where there's interaction between you and your opponent when you get hit, you have Arc System Works games with a burst, you have Killer Instinct, you have Smash, you have Soul Calibur. That's a lot of games, honestly. There are games that have these things. So you can just look at those games and say, okay, we'll try these games. And if you don't like these games, what's the issue there, right? The button combos one is so weird to me, especially because action games are really fun, right? People like action games. They like games like Monster Hunter. They like games like Dark Souls. They like games like Devil May Cry. They like games like, Bayonetta, even beyond that. When I am queuing up into a match of Runeterra, a card game, when I'm playing against an opponent and I see what their deck regions are, I probably have at least 30 to 35 of the cards in their 40 deck memorized. Almost guaranteed that there's like 35 of these cards in here, and these are exactly what I expect. Then the entire region has like 100 cards, and I know every card in all the 8 regions or whatever there is. So when you think about it like that, that's a shit ton of memorization. It's the same kind of idea. Memorization is part of all games, really, right? It's cool to think about this kind of stuff from a fighting game player's perspective, and also think like, well, the games that they are describing do exist, actually. There are games like what both these first 2 posts are mentioning. Oh, this one's interesting. I read an idea of a fighting game with 1 hit point, so the first strike to land wins the round. Yeah, dive kick. Footsies, yeah, even now there's multiple. Bushido Blade. Most of the other comments below this are people who are like familiar with fighting games, who are like more similar with what we would be talking about here, but I just liked reading those. Those are so interesting to me. This is my favorite comment right here, actually. I don't like playing games where I have to play memorization stuff. Even RTS games, which is my second most played competitive format behind Counter-Strike, that have build orders, I generally just get a feel for how the race plays and evolves and then go with it. I don't like memorizing build orders. What he just said is so interesting, because what do you think people do when they play fighting games? Do you think they memorize every single move of every single character and how many frames it is and all that kind of stuff? Obviously no. When people just jump in and play games like fighting games, they just like do a couple of moves. They're like, these moves are cool. I like these moves. I generally have a feel as how this character plays and evolves, and then I go with it. It's the same thing. I mean, what do you do in Counter-Strike? Do you just go dump all your money and buy a bunch of stuff, and then the next round you buy a bunch of stuff and you just like run around the map aiming at the floor? Like, no, you memorize, oh, this guy usually is around this corner at the start of the round. Oh, when I start the game, I stare right here down the middle with my op. And as soon as this guy's gonna, goddamn, and he got me. Well, next round, I don't have an op, so I'm going to smoke it and then run by. Like, it's hard to play a game, even if it's single player, where that doesn't require some amount of memorization. When you read this kind of stuff, I can totally see where they're coming from, because this person probably jumped into a fighting game, played a fighting game, and was like, bro, there's too much shit going on. I don't know what the fuck's happening here. I'm out. Which I totally get. But what they describe here as how they play other games, you can totally play fighting games in that way. In fact, it's how I play fighting games, and I play fighting games all the time. I jump into a new game and I'm like, what does my character do? I don't know. Fuck it. And I just get in there. Yeah, I mean, there's that example of Mango, right? Playing Smash, and then like 10 years into playing Smash, Leffen is trying to teach him frame data, and he's like, bro, what the fuck is this frame data shit? Who cares? Just play it. Just do what feels good. Maybe they refer to memorization as a barrier to get to the understand the game at a higher level. Perhaps, but how many games do they probably understand at a super high level? How many fighting game fans understand fighting games at a high level? Not very many. It's most fans in most genres really don't understand games at a high level. It's always this way, where like if you make it to gold or something, you're like in the top 5% or 10% of all players who've played ranked for the game. They're like, holy shit, you made it to gold? Incredible. Now you think about a gold level player in most games, and most gold level players are like, I'm so shitty. I don't know what I'm doing, right? And then you look at platinum and diamond and the high level players, and they're still like, I don't even know what the fuck I'm doing. It's like no matter what level, you feel like you have so much more to learn about the game. I feel like it's so easy to read what we just read and get pissed off at them. I'm not pissed off at all. I'm not reading them because I'm like, oh, how do I convert them to fighting game players? I like reading them because I just think they're fun to read. And it's very interesting to compare that to our current fighting games and say, like, a lot of the things that people say, like, man, if only there was a fighting game like this, it usually does exist. And at the same time, yeah, like, why? I don't know. If new players get into fighting games, that always makes me happy. Listen, my roommate was playing Demon Souls. I don't think he's played very many Souls games ever, really. His goal is to be better than Obama. That's the only goal he has. And, you know, I was watching his stream and a certain part came out, and I'm like, man, I just have to say one word and I can create a series of unfortunate events. And I typed the following in the chat.
RTSD. Ah, you bitch, Sajam!
All you have to do is type 4 simple letters. RTSD. Why aren't you guys this funny when you guys backseat, huh?